Over the past 2 years, I have intensified my personal interest in AI and digital technology in our industry. But I'm not going crazy and gaga over AI and saying, oh, this is so great. And I'm actually quite conservative and have raised the flag about cybersecurity risks that this might bring. All of the projects that we're involved with have strict non-disclosure agreements or MSAs that govern how we have managed confidential information.
Thanks for checking out Project Cargo Professionals. We talk a lot about digitalization and AI on this show, which is why I want to tell you about our sponsor, Logiswift. Logiswift makes your operations faster and simpler, managing the entire cargo lifecycle in one smart platform. With real end-to-end visibility, you can adapt quickly when things change. Built for Project Cargo, it's now even more powerful with its new AI feature. Check out logiswift.com to take your supply chain to the next level, or message me directly and I'll connect you with Ziad, Khan and the team. Now to the show. Marco, good to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for coming to Houston.
No, I'm enjoying it. Marco, you've worked for UTC Overseas for nearly 30 years. For those who don't know, tell us a bit about the company and what you guys do.
UTC Overseas goes back to 1926, but really since 1989, Brian Posthumous has owned it. He's originally from South Africa, and he took the project division global in that. So we operate in about 100 countries, about 50 offices.
100?
Yeah, and we've got through partners, but we've got about 50 offices around the world.
Right.
And the focus is on, we've got a number of verticals. By far, historically, is the power generation and global energy, which I'm the head of that vertical. Headquarters here in Houston. We've got a heavy equipment with the crane, steel, canning, and a number of different general cargo divisions focused on Asia, the United States, for example. And we're in the tremendous expansion mode right now.
Where are you expanding?
We've just opened up in Suriname, leveraging our experience in Guyana. We're also about to announce shortly some expansion into the Middle East, and also in Asia Pacific. We've got a 3 to 5 year plan here to really expand.
So will that be your first foray into the Middle East and Asia?
No, we've got offices now in Taiwan, in China, in Vietnam. We opened up last year, but we've got to expand. Our clients are asking for the UTC service in these markets, so it's a good thing.
So it's a good time to be working for UTC.
It's an exciting time. Project logistics and serving clients with this, the demand has never been this high. I think it's since I joined UTC in '98. It's a similar time in that market here where we see a strong demand for capital projects.
And I saw a video where you said, I'm just a shipping guy. I love cargo. What is it that's kept you in the business for so long? What do you love about it?
I love the people. The people have got a grit that you don't find in many other industries. You're not just on a laptop. I mean, that's a key part of the job. You could be at the port. I'm headed later this week to Guyana to discharge 2 vessels, and we've got our team on the ground there ready to receive it, and some challenging moves. And I'll be there to support and sort of just support the client if there's any questions and so forth. But I enjoy getting out there, getting out to the field and watching the action.
So how much of your time are you traveling?
Every 2 weeks at least, yeah.
And you've got a lot going on in Guyana?
Yes, we've been there very early on we've been active in Guyana in some shape or form in the mining industry before the big oil finds. But we put a person on the ground 6 years ago to scout out before any of the movement happened. And we've had a very successful joint venture with Gisby, which has the shore base contract there on that. So that is our partner in Guyana. And we've been active now in the gas to energy project on the first phase, financed by Exim Bank, and there'll likely be a second phase as well.
And I saw a nice program that you did with NPR, where you were talking about different aspects of shipping and transportation. And you did some interesting research into the very first heavy lift vessels.
That's actually tied to my role as an adjunct professor at the University of Houston Cullen Engineering School. I've been doing that for just about 5 years now. And I was invited by Dr. John Leonhardt, who's an absolute legend. He's probably one of there's always a list of reasons why you move. I've been in Houston now for 20 years. It's been a great experience being here. But I whenever I would come in and happen to hear his voice on the radio, and becoming a professor, that's probably one of the biggest draws for me, was to be on that radio show, which has turned into a podcast now. And his format was cutting edge 30 years ago. And he was obviously trying to promote the tremendous engineering department of the University of Houston. He's worked on the B-2 bomber. I mean, he's 94 this year and still producing. The day I was in the studio last month, he had put 3 episodes in the morning. And his format is really interesting. It has to be 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Precisely. And I was very humbled when I did my first draft. I actually took my master's thesis from SUNY Maritime. I did my master's at SUNY Maritime there, and it obviously was a graduate level. And he said, the draft was on a 19th grade level. And he kind of smacked me a couple of times and said, you need to write this and speak it at a 7th grade level. Not because the individuals, you're not insulting anyone's intelligence, it's because the person doing the dishes or jogging on the radio can't keep up with all the academic type terms or the jargon that comes with that. So he was a big fan of the Irish-born physicist Eric Watson, Nobel laureate. That his mantra was always that if you can explain it to the common man in 3 minutes, you understand it. And I think we find that a lot in different industries where, and I see that in dealing with clients and trying to. Actually, we have very intelligent clients, and they've specialists in what they do, and they're just looking for the key answer. So that skill set is very relevant. And with that podcast, I was really honored that, it took about 9 drafts for him to get me down to what he found suitable. And I took my master's thesis on heavy lift ships and walked into the studio there in the Houston Public Media. And it's literally broadcast around the world, Army radio and all that. And it's an ongoing program. And just a month ago, I submitted about 2 months ago the one on rail cars, on specialized rail cars.
Yeah.
And that just came out last month.
I heard that.
And it was a fantastic experience. I'll be working on a couple more, but it's between my doctorate, which is, of course, and got this tremendous, fantastic day job, but it's a fantastic experience to do that.
And on the subject of rail, I know historically there has been varying interest. Some of the railroads have wanted oversized project cargo. Some of them have been less keen. What does that look like today? How much is moving by rail?
Well, a lot of what we see for the data centers, the tremendous demand for power generation and transformers, there's no choice but to go by rail. And there's some challenge in the availability of cars. You've got cars that are aging. And the big mix on this is that the Class 1 railroads basically do not want this cargo.
That's what I thought.
I'm not saying individuals at the railroad, but as a strategy, it's very open.
Because it's disruptive to their network.
Exactly.
They can't plan around it. It's just a pain.
It's a challenge now because for rail, for sustainability over long miles, we all know it happens tremendous here where a truck is hitting a bridge. It almost seems like every 6 months you hear about a truck hitting a bridge. We have carrier vetting programs and so forth. Rail offers an industrial way to get cargo in long miles, and over long miles it's actually very competitive. But that uncertainty on the railroad of meeting up different switching yards and connecting and getting the rail car and having those issues, UTC has developed a very unique, and we did this about 20 years ago, an in-house rail engineering team. And to be able to persuade a Class 1 railroad to start with, under Rule 11, is at the starting point, you've got to produce a very clear engineered drawing of how the cargo from the OEM fits onto a proposed rail car. And what we've had is historical data where we'll take that and by our knowledge, be able to put that together and submit that to the railroad. And we've got color coding on there, it's clearly marked in case it will touch any rail signage or foliage or tunnels, all of those technical parts. It becomes very clear. So the railroad has to go through the process. It's a challenge now because at RICA, it's pretty clear what we hear at RICA that it's taking 2 months to get railroad clearance. So and getting that feedback for the OEM of what the design should look like. And right now with the data centers, there are a lot of new entrants into the North American market, given the tremendous demand, which is causing backlog and so forth.
New entrants in terms of customers or
suppliers. Obviously, the global trade with tariffs and the uncertainty about where to purchase from, it's causing a lot of interest in the United States market, but also and the demand is there. And how do you deal with a lot of questions? I honestly, from a human level, try to help our clients a lot with these questions because it's a lot of uncertainty. But the projects are fascinating, right? They're real.
So what needs to happen to get the railroads to be more receptive to handling these cargoes?
It's not something that will. I honestly don't think anything can one solution for it. I can only say that an organization such as RICA, that's been around for 50 plus years, is a fantastic engagement with the railroads. But it's a shame a lot of the railroads are making cuts and people in those departments that determine railroad industrial clearance. What it needs is at the same time, I suppose if you've got some sort of market viability for this, they look at it. But the volumes, if you look at the volumes, the pure numbers of this industrial cargo versus the volume of container traffic, of different other regular commodities and high volume rail cars, it's just not there. It always will be a pain point.
And you've spoken about what you called a critical risk caused by the increase in tariffs for steel and aluminium. Why do you see that as such a big issue?
Well, steel is something that touches all of us in all types of manufacturing, right? But I would say, yes, that's sort of a benchmark of a possibility. But it's also from a project forward point of view, a heavy lift carrier. At the end of the day, we care about the cargo, and it's an opportunity. There's new steel plants, with moving to the United States and so forth. So it always becomes an opportunity in logistics. I have to say that the largest hurdle is less about the commodity itself, but the uncertainty right now about where to purchase from and whether it even makes sense to manufacturing it, that sort of trade-off analysis, right?
What are your customers saying to you at the moment? Are they thinking about changing their supply chains or their manufacturing?
That question comes up every day, and understanding whether it's something should go into an FTZ or a bonded facility in the United States to sort of try to hedge the uncertainty. That's a daily question about should they purchase from an XYZ country or this workshop of the world versus that one. That's all a question.
But the goal with a lot of these policies is boosting domestic production, right? But that doesn't happen quickly.
It doesn't happen quickly, and at the end of the day, what's very interesting to see some of the reports over the past week is that how Wall Street is not overreacting to the news of the tariffs, right? Which is a good sign, and that eventually this will come to some sort of certainty, and then an investment path will come, which is critical for capital projects.
Why do you think they're not overreacting?
Because at the end of the day, the backtracking of some of these tariffs, the suspension of implementing them, and there's always this negotiating going on. Right?
And are there any other developments that you think we should be watching more closely?
I would say one of the issues that I'm doing the doctorate at the University of Houston, the DBA program at Bauer, has been real life-changing for me because Bauer is a very practical school here in Houston, and the exposure to business, it's a lot of the academics are very active in the business community. The development of AI is something I'm as an industry faculty member of the University of Houston Bauer Human-Centered AI Institute. And over the past 2 years, I have intensified my personal interest in AI and digital technology in our industry, in the maritime industry. But I'm not going crazy and gaga over AI and saying, oh, this is all great. And I'm actually quite conservative and have raised the flag about cybersecurity risks that this might bring. Confidential, all of the projects that we're involved with have strict non-disclosure agreements or MSAs that govern how we have managed confidential information. And so that's how what I see an issue, and this was just published last week in the Journal of Commerce, my research so far is on on carrier vetting. And I've witnessed this. This is not something, an academic has dreamed up. I have witnessed this in discharging in South America, where the vessel crane had a digital sensor failure. And we lost 3 days, which may not seem, and it was maybe swept under the rug.
Sounds expensive.
It was expensive, not where we weren't paying for it. It was clearly on the vessel side, right? There's always this little trade-off about who pays for it, which to me is the most important question in shipping, right? Who pays for it? But it was clearly the vessel's fault. So, but we've had Goldhoffers, and the job site had cranes waiting, and obviously significant individuals wanting to see the offload of a major power plant here. And I witnessed this early last year, and the timing of my doctoral research was great. This was all kind of, again, this is the issue I really want to drill down on, and enhance the carrier vetting. Because in the shipping world, you've got the commercial operators, you've got the vessel owner who's maybe very distant, and then you've got the stevedores and the crew, all of these elements here. And there are many services out there that will help you vet the carrier and vet the P&I club and all that. But I have yet to see any sort of carrier vetting that contemplates the crane type on there, the competence of the crew, and these sort of issues. Because as technology and digital technology specifically is adopted, and it's coming, it's exciting, this transition period will be a challenge. I have to say the tier one carriers, and we all know who they are in working with, they don't have enough ships commercially. It's not always viable for every project to use them. But that's what I see is how do we communicate this to our clients? Because as UTC, many of our clients see us as an extension of their logistics department. We are helping them make decisions such as which is the best carrier to meet a project, where do we store our cargo, how do we keep it safe, all these insurance questions from the risk management. I see this adoption of technology as maybe a very quiet, hidden risk that nobody's talking about. And I'm fortunate that because I've been teaching this and I try to understand this to teach the students, and now on this doctorate program, I have seen exposure to some of the cohorts who are taking this and seeing how these other firms are adopting technology and what they go through. But what's very unique is that the physical digital, there's not much written about that in the theory side about how to adopt technology.
And this crane failure you mentioned, I think you described that as a digital dependency, and you had some concerns around that. Can you see that becoming an issue in other areas of logistics?
I see this in maybe to bring it home all across industries. I came across in the literature review recently, for example, John Deere tractors that the farmers, if you can think of a crew on a heavy lift ship or any ship, the crew's very proud that they're self-sufficient, that they pick up they stop at the ship, get the supplies, and move on to the next port. But they're very taking care of the ship. Farmers have got that culture as well, right? That grit, that they take care of their farm and so forth. The farmers in the United States have gotten together and were actually putting a case against John Deere because they can no longer, with the software, and don't take it away. The digital technology for John Deere is fantastic for the farmer, but the farmer has felt the need to be able to repair his own tractor, right? So wherever you see this gap of the physical digital challenge, and I think that brings it home for many people who have not been on the ship. It's on the crane side. There's tremendous safety features that have come from digitization, the feeling the wind and the center of gravity and all this. I'm not going to sound like a Luddite here and say that we shouldn't have this technology. It's good. The redundancy.
They can always fail.
They can fail, and the dependency needs to be planned for, especially on the critical capital projects.
What can AI or other tech tools do for Project Cargo today?
What we have seen on the supply chain side is very paper-based. Right? There are some fantastic document processing. A lot of what we see in the healthcare industry, if you can imagine, X-rays are now much more predictive about diagnosis. A lot of that transforming to logistics is in say, on the ship, weather routing, and that's becoming, and the larger container carriers using that on disruption with Suez Canal. Those are all very real. There are some reports of some carriers that have set up their own LLM for the crew on the ship to ask technical questions. I mean, that's sort of the efficiencies that AI will bring will be some small steps. It's sort of almost like a new internet coming out.
You spoke about being an adjunct professor at the university. Why is that so important to you?
I sort of fell into that role. I'm grateful to Margaret Kidd, who called me between Christmas and New Year's, that the founder of the course, and she had worked on putting this course together, feedback from the industry of the need of a project logistics course. And the professor at the time had passed away, and she needed somebody to take it over. And I honestly, I had done my master's MBA at SUNY Maritime. I completed that in 2003. And I honestly didn't have patience for academia on that. And I said, I did it for help. And I said, this might be a chance for me to give back, number one, also possibly find some talent to recruit. And then it turned in, and the more I did it, the more I realized that it's really rewarding to give back in something that I found for myself, how I sort of fell into this industry. Born and raised in Jersey City, across New York City, blue-collar town, port city, and my dad had a trucking company focused on doing paper deliveries into Jacob Jappas Center and all this. And I got my first job at the World Trade Center, internship. And when I got the full-time job at the World Trade Center there, I would go into the World Trade Institute on the 50th floor. I have a couple of certificates from one World Trade Center, and they were adjunct professors there. The collection became part of Pace University later. But that definitely marked me. Some individuals that were traveling around the world and telling me how deals were done. And I had a chartering, insurance, cargo insurance, all of these sort of practical courses, which working with Margaret and with UH, I tried to bring that sort of practical training, Incoterms training, to the project logistics course. And on a personal side, I've had students ask me to do mock interviews. You know, my wife said, I thought the class was over. I'm at 9:30 still on the Teams call doing a mock interview to help someone. And it's rewarding when they get a job, right? Because ultimately, that's what is exciting to me about University of Houston. It's very practical. It's in developing students to get employment.
So you'd recommend it to people maybe listening overseas who have never considered doing anything like that? You'd recommend it as an experience?
Absolutely. And even now, I was to give back in the training and really to set, I hand it to specifically the Germans and the Dutch and the Danes. They've got a tremendous apprenticeship program. And it's a challenge to develop talent, I would say, in the Americas, right? Because, and I say that there's a lot of competing industries. When I came out of school, the internet was starting. Many went off to California, and we're competing for talent in many industries. And I would say, maybe it's not, to me, the diversity, the global diversity as well, and the potential here for tapping into maybe disadvantaged groups and to come in, and the potential here to get some training to, and moving from the New York area, I actually came in from Miami to Houston. I love this sort of high-skilled blue-collar field that we're in. I mean, that's your earlier question about the people, right? You see a lot of things happening in the field and touching oversized cargo that I don't think you see any other industry.
What advice do you give to students who are thinking of going into logistics?
The largest is to be patient and maybe humble, that it's just because a couple of training courses doesn't mean that you'll be managing a team. It takes time. I remember I was very ambitious as well coming in, and I was told that a number of times that experience is really important in our industry, and yes, continuous education, but the experience is critical.
And you touched on the Houston Maritime Center. Our friend Margaret's just joined. Tell us about your involvement, because you're involved in that center as well.
Yes, that's a fantastic. I think that goes back celebrated 25 years. It was actually a SUNY Maritime grad who sailed on Exxon tankers, and he had a collection and had a house and put all his collection. That's how it started. And when I first moved to Houston, there were a lot of scouting. Both my sons are Eagle Scouts, and they had the merit badge. And you had a lot of docents there that had sailed, or you had people from the maritime industry, right? That pride that comes from being in our industry, which if we look at Europe, you'll see that pride of being in.
Right.
And in SUNY Maritime, we've got. There is a museum. Some of the classes are in the museum. It's a very unique place to study that. So that really attracted me from the very beginning of moving to Houston on that. And then it moved to another venue, and now it's on a roll on the East End. I mean, it is just an amazing, and I have to tell you that through the toughest times, the group, the executive board, were really always passionate about being committed to maritime education. And they do events such as Family Day, reaching out and having a kids' cove to expose kids at a very early age, to having notable lectures. And of course, it will be now also a fantastic venue for company events. We've done many events there, and the proceeds go to education, that sort of maritime education outreach that it does.
So you think they're in safe hands with Margaret as president?
I think she's on to some huge things for that center. It's very exciting to see her there.
And what are your interests outside of work?
I love hiking. I love traveling itself, even though I travel a lot. Traveling with the family. We had a great trip in Italy as a gift for my oldest son's graduation.
Where in Italy?
We started in Rome. Actually got to see the Pope, which was exciting.
Wow.
And we drove up to Pisa, went to Monte Rosa de Cinque Terre, where my wife's grandparents were from, grandmother's family. So it was a fantastic experience, and I obviously love to read a lot, love museums, and that's one of the blessings of this work is that if there ever is a downtime, maybe you can see a museum or somewhere and get to know a little bit about where we're working, right?
And we're recording this just a few weeks in advance of Breakbulk Americas. What do you think people are going to be talking about this year?
I'm on the executive advisory board and have supported. What I sense is shipbuilding seems to be and the Ships Act in the United States, specifically since this is the Breakbulk Americas, is definitely the interest about where. And I also was appointed to the MITSNAC committee, which is 27 industry individuals guiding. Well, it's part of really MARID, but ultimately to the Secretary of Transportation. So it's something that we're all obviously. There's a tremendous concern with the Section 301 here on Chinese built ship. That seems to be the overriding concern about how to address that. And I know there will be some really interesting speakers coming at Breakbulk that will be speaking about that. That's one issue. And then technology, I led that as a UH, Human Centered AI Institute faculty member, the workshop on AI in the maritime industry. I did that last year. And then again at Rotterdam. And that was, I think we're moving to the Rotterdam model, which we did as a trial where we invite 4 companies to showcase. And of course, we have some academic to bring people up to speed about how AI is being implemented. But I think there'll be an opportunity for 4 companies to share how they're adopting cutting-edge technology, AI, digital technology in their industry. And that'll be done at Breakbulk Americas as well. So that will be, and we what's interesting is that you've got diverse applications of that, right? Whether it's on the ship or documentation or customer service with chatbots. So there's various angles of that, and it seems like that will be now almost certainly a permanent until we're all kind of using it like we use the internet, right?
And Breakbulk Americas is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year, as you know. As you look back, why has your participation been so important, and what do you get out of the event?
The event brings people together, and it's obviously primarily a carrier conference, and it's bringing the carriers all in one place where we can meet. I have gotten over the years insight, and I would say that there aren't too many if you look at the volume, primarily, if we're not going to see many of our clients, to be honest there, right? We're going to see primarily maybe, I'd say the most informed and educated clients about logistics are attending Breakbulk. And they have many options. It's a very competitive, right? So that in itself is a challenge. I think what we bring back is the market intel. And it almost is sort of a type of carrier vetting to know how many ships a carrier has, what investments they're making, what type of ships, that sort of information. And then, of course, it's expanding to different other specialized individuals. And there's always interesting speakers as well, right, over the years.
And imagine you're hosting a dinner party at Breakbulk Americas. Who would you invite, past or present, from the industry?
Well, on that question, I actually, to me, going on ships, and these are individuals, and we have to remember that, making decisions in the office. To me, I really enjoy having lunch with the captain on the ship. That is probably the other, call it a perk of my job, is to talk to somebody who's sailing around the world, managing a crew, and has seen the world. And that to me is, it's not someone who will ever, very unlikely, maybe if they retire and get a a job in the office in the land. And there are many of those types at Breakbulk. So those are sort of what makes Breakbulk attractive. But I would say if at a dinner party, there are some legendary names, people that really have marked our industry, like Roger Kavanaugh, that are not with us anymore. Greg Gowans, who's got the education today, that really made their mark in the industry. But even individuals that sort of exited but are still making an influence, maybe indirectly, because they know our industry, like Greg Rusevich, who worked at Transoceanic, right, and then sold to Agility Projects. He's now active in civic work in Louisiana as well. So there are many names. I mean, if you, again, not if you want to sound glamorous, if you're familiar with Thomas Mann and the book Bundenbrooks, right? Everyone knows the Magic Mountain, but that captures the merchant family, right? And there's a little bit of shipping in there. So to me, I've always been, and having settled on that, I think in the private space for a project forwarder is something that allows and empowers us to be. I'm going to be biased about who's at that dinner party and people that have done things, right, that are changing the industry.
Just a couple of quick fire questions to finish. Somebody's just arrived in Houston for Breakbulk Americas. Recommendation for somewhere to eat or drink?
Well, because we're so scattered out here in Houston, the prime location close to the convention center is definitely places like the Grove, Brasier. Those are quick to get to. Right? But this is a foodie town.
There's some great restaurants here.
Really great restaurants here, and it's a lot of great places to get together. The challenge, of course, is that you need to get into a car. Unlike when Breakbulk Europe or so forth, that you're able to get basically a train anywhere you want. And here you've got Uber now that makes things a little easier, but it's not the same.
And you've got a disaster with a shipment, and you've got one phone call for somebody that can help you, but it can't be to somebody in UTC. Who would you call?
Outside of UTC?
Outside of UTC.
I've got a long list. I've got maybe 10,000 people. It depends on the problem, depends on the, this is they've said you've got to be the go-to guy, right, to be successful. So there's probably 10,000 people I can call.
That's you're in a good position then. And complete the sentence. If I wasn't in logistics, I'd be...
I still would be in logistics on the ship.
On the ship?
Yeah, to me, if you say what's the next dream job, it's probably on the ship, right? It's not exactly the best work-life balance. And actually, it's interesting to see. I was in Norway for the International Maritime Economist. I submitted my abstract, and I was shocked that they accepted me as an academic already. But to see and witness what the Norwegians are doing with autonomous vessels is just amazing. And they have to with 5 million people in such a coastline. But this work-life balance, they're actually having now with the NVIDIA approval, the chief engineer working remotely, picking up his kids and so forth and running the ship from shore. That to me is, okay, I'm sorry, maybe I'm cheating out of the question here, but saying it's still logistics. It's on the ship, right?
Marco, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you coming in.
Hi, it's Leslie Meredith with the Breakbulk team, and welcome to Voices of Breakbulk Americas, produced by the Project Cargo Professionals podcast to help us celebrate the 35th anniversary of Breakbulk Americas. Enjoy the show and register now so that you can join us in Houston this fall, September 30th through October 2nd for Breakbulk Americas.